What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Barking for Balance, the podcast where we talk about dogs, but we also talk about whatever it is that's meant to teach, inspire, and entertain. What is going on? Benvenuto a tutti. Yes, we speak Italian, Sicilian, mostly Sicilian, if anything. I am Pat the Packman, dog behavior and rehabilitation specialist for Packman to the Rescue, Canine Solutions and Coaching. And it's about training people, not training dogs. You heard that correctly. That's what it's about. Not training dogs, not the trick or treater, not to no, 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 no. That's a little Sicilian, by the way, if you're wondering. So what was that? That's what I'm talking about. That's why I say it right off the bat. So in case you're wondering, what the hell's he talking about? That's what he's talking about. So we have fun on this platform. We have fun. We have talked about dogs, inspirational stuff. It's all good. Today, it's going to be a really cool one. This episode, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about dog movies. That's right. I picked out three dog movies that I recently had the opportunity to watch, and we're going to go into them. I'm going to talk to a little bit about the movie. I'll tell you which titles they are. So if you have not seen them and you want to see them, make sure that you, mute that period of time so that this way it doesn't create any spoilers for you. So, I'm going to get into those three movies in a second. And before we kick this off, first and foremost, what do you got to do, guys? Have you subscribed to this podcast? Have you subscribed to the Barking for Balance podcast? If you haven't, guys, what are you waiting for? Hit those subscribe buttons, wag your tail on over, slap a paw on those subscribe buttons. We're on Google, Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. We also make sure I want you to follow and like the YouTube channel. Packman to the Rescue, Packman to the Rescue. On top of all that, you got to follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Again, Packman to the Rescue, Packman. This way, you know everything that we got going on. And on top of it all, you need to get my autobiography. It's my pride and joy. God spelled backwards. It's behind me if you're watching me on the YouTube channel. God spelled backwards, the autobiography. It's going to be awesome. It's awesome. You got to read it. You're going to be inspired. You're going to have fun. It's about me. There's some dog stuff in there, but mostly it's about me. It's a really cool book. It's awesome. I'm proud of it. God spelled backwards. Links are going to be in here. Make sure you get that. So what movies are we going to talk about today? Picked out three. The first one, it's called Hachi, A Dog's Tale. I actually wrote it down, so this way I didn't lose track. So I'm reading off of my notes. The second one is Canine. This is an older movie with John Belushi. Or is it James Belushi? Which one is it? I think it's John Belushi. I always forget. I always get confused. Let me just see here because I don't want to screw it up. I want to make sure that I don't screw that up because I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody in particular. And I always get confused between the two, whether it's John Belushi or James Belushi. They were brothers, obviously. One of them passed away. Very, very sad. He obviously passed away a long time ago. But, anyway, so the other movie, while I look this up, so this way there's some clarification as to which one it is for my own edification, because clearly I'm confused on that one. I should have looked this up ahead of time. So my bad. Scusate, chiedo scusa. I apologize for that. But anyway, I didn't want to go back into, what do you call it? Editing. I like this thing to be natural. So all the screw ups, you're going to hear them. That's how it works. So, and it is Jim Belushi, by the way. It is Jim Belushi. John Belushi was the one who passed away. So, tutta buona benedetta. And Jim Belushi is the Canine movie. And the third movie is Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford. So let's talk about these movies. Now, I want to talk about the movies, obviously from an entertainment standpoint, from a movie standpoint, from a cute standpoint, all that kind of good stuff, but also a little bit from dog behavior perspective. Okay. The first one, which is Canine with Jim Belushi. I really couldn't find a lot of, and if you guys haven't seen the movie, I'll tell you what it's about. Again, spoiler alerts here. So, be prepared. But Canine is Jim Belushi plays the cop and he needs a police dog to basically solve the case. I'm going to give you a very, very abridged short version of what the purpose of the movies are, but there are going to be some parts where there's going to be some spoiler alerts. So, so he's a cop. He needs a canine dog to help him out with a case. And that's basically the whole thing. The purpose of the basic gist of the movie is, it starts off where it's a little of a rough relationship. Jim Belushi wants to be the tough one. The dog says, "Mavafangulo," gives him the finger. And it's this back and forth. And eventually they become great friends and they love each other and blah, 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 blah. Hollywood crap. Anyway, so it's a really cool movie, though. It's very, very funny from a dog perspective. It's really cool. Jim Belushi's really entertaining. It's an old movie. I want to say it was done in like the early 90s, maybe in the 80s, but it's a really, really entertaining movie. Really, really fun. Really cool. If you have not seen it, highly recommend it. Get your ass over there. Move it along. Actually, it's made in 1989 to be exact. So awesome movie. Really cool. Funny, entertaining, and really, really, really enjoyed it. So the part about the movie, it's a German Shepherd. Okay, so it's a German Shepherd. Obviously, it's a police dog. So we have a German Shepherd, a cool dog. I don't remember his name, to be honest, but it really doesn't matter. I'm not sure if it was his real name in real life either. Um, so the purpose of the movie, the parts about the movie that I found interesting and that's cool about it, and from a dog perspective, we'll get into that first and foremost. The dog perspective that I remember, that was really the only thing that I picked up from this particular movie itself, is that when he goes to get him, Jim Belushi is a little unsure. He's never had dogs. He's never been around dogs. So he's not exactly sure how to deal with him. He's not some of those wizards that haven't had dogs my whole life and they think they're the greatest in the world. No, the actual canine handler tells him, you have to assert yourself. You got to show him who's boss. That kind of like extremely dominant type stuff. Which again, for the trick or treaters and the positive people and the positive trainers, they're going to be like, no, well, that's not the case. You just have to show them love and give them trick or treats. Yeah, good luck with that. But it clearly, the concept of having a police dog, and you need to show who's in control. You need to have structure for this dog, so that this way the dog knows exactly what his job is and who to look for direction and guidance and all that kind of good stuff. And that's really the relationship, the way it becomes. Once Jim Belushi kind of like becomes a little more confident, all of a sudden he starts to, the dog starts to kind of like gravitate to him a little bit more, and they become more of a partner. It becomes more of a partnership, and it's really, really, really entertaining and funny as hell. This is like the first, installment of talking about dog movies. I just picked these three because they were the latest ones that I ended up watching. I mean, I had seen a canine I've seen Canine many times. It was on TV, ended up watching obviously because it was on, and I enjoyed it, so I'm going to watch it. Hachi, the dog's tale, I had never seen before. I've heard some stories about it, so I wanted just to get a chance. I finally got a chance to it, so I watched that one. And then A Call of the Wild is relatively new, and I wanted to take a look at that one as well, so I had the opportunity to look at that. But we'll talk about various movies. So no, three alla volta. Three is one and three are my lucky numbers. So I like to do things in either ones or threes. So that's why I picked three movies at a time. And the next installment of the Packman movie, whatever we're going to call the segment, it'll be another three, maybe like Turner and Hooch, or maybe some old school TV shows like Rin Tin Tin or Lassie, or something like that. But we'll get into those as we go along. But the first three, I just picked these at random. So yeah, so going back to Canine, it's funny. There's really not a lot to talk about when it comes to that, because again, there's really it's just funny and fun. It's there's some silly parts to it, and some absurd stuff to it, but it's just for fun and games. It's a very, very tough dog. He rips the mirror off his car. I mean, it's just a lot of just that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But it's really, really cool. But I did find interesting when it comes to Guido Gadisha, io sono il padrone. The guy tells him you have to be the boss, because Jim Belushi's afraid. He doesn't have the dog's respect. And once he kind of becomes that figure, that calm and firm, authoritative, although Jim Belushi really is not more calm, he's more like angry, but in the movie it kind of works. So tutta buona benedita, it all works out. The Call of the Wild I found very interesting. Now, The Call of the Wild is obviously it's with Harrison Ford. It's based on a TV show, if I'm not mistaken. And The Call of the Wild is the basic premise of it is a dog that kind of ends up running away from home, so to speak, and he ends up with all these different adventures. I don't want to reveal too much on this, but he pretty much ends up becoming, again, it's based on old times. So old times, they were delivering mail on sleds, and sleds were being pulled by the dogs. So the people that were in charge, basically this was their job. They had a timeline. They were on a, crunched, tight schedule, and they had to be delivering the mail because people were waiting for the mail at a certain time. So they had to be there, crossing over these freezing mountains and all this cold and all this snow and ice, and it was just crazy shit. They were just going through all this wilderness and all this snow and ice, and it was just wild. I mean, that's why it's called the Call of the Wild. Vede come funziona dopo. Hai visto? Oh, so yeah. So it was basically, he ends up on this, this pack of dogs that are pulling this sled with the male, and the one thing that I found that's really, and it's a really, it's a really cool movie. Harrison Ford plays a part. It's mostly centered around the dog. So as much as like we were talking about Canine, which is mostly centered around Jim Belushi and the human side, this was more centered around the dog side. So there's a lot of more dog stuff involved, a lot more dog footage. So there's not a lot of talking, but there's a lot of dog stuff going on. And one part in particular, which I found extremely fascinating, of course, from a professional standpoint, very entertaining movie, fun, heartfelt, not like a tearjerker. This wasn't a tearjerker. I mean, there's a couple of sad things, but don't worry, dog is safe. The dog does not die. Um, everything is fine. There's no issues. No dogs pass away in the movie. But the main dog, his name is Buddy, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what he is. I don't remember what he is. He's like this big mountainy dog. He looks like a combination of like a Bernese mountain dog and like a Saint Bernard. He's got, I don't know if he's like a mutt. I'm not exactly sure. But regardless, he's like a bigger dog. So he ends up on this sled team to deliver the mail, and the leader of the pack of dogs is a husky. And the husky, again, portrayed in the movie, is a bit of a dick. So he's a little bit of a bully, and he bosses the other dogs around. And because, I think, again, I forget exactly his name, but I think his name is Buddy. Buddy is, the star of the movies, the star of the thing. He's the newest arrival on the sled team. And because of that, he's getting pushed around by this husky, and he's getting bullied around by this husky. But all the other dogs are doing the same thing. So as the movie's progressing, and you could see that the husky is like, instilling fear on the other dogs. And there's one particular scene as Buddy starts to become more confident, because he's getting pinned down, and Buddy is about 3 times bigger than the husky. Just FYI, he's about 3 times bigger than the husky. So during the movie, he's getting pushed around. So the other dogs, and Buddy's just very submissive, and he backs away. But the reason why I find that this scene extremely fascinating is because it shows how dogs, and just from a human perspective, when you lead with toughness, with macho-ness, with ego, you're not going to get any respect. When you're trying to intimidate and instill fear, you're not going to earn any respect. And to me, that's just stupid. Even from a human perspective, when people try to, force the dogs to do what they want, or teach with the systems that are just very forceful, I think that's just absurd, So in this kind of case, it's a dog that's kind of doing this, which really doesn't happen in the dog world, but they kind of made it. Again, it's a Hollywood movie, so obviously they have to humanize it a little bit. So they made this dog a little bit more of a bully, like a mean bully, like one of those high school, scumbag bully kind of guys. And so, to make a long story short, and one of the scenes, as Buddy's starting to becoming a little bit more confident, and he's starting to see how things are going, and he doesn't really like how things are going, he decides that he's going to start to take some action. So there's one particular part where they stop to get a drink of water. So they're getting some water, and there's a little bit of a hole in the ice, because the sled is going all over this ice. So they managed to make a hole. And so one of the dogs managed to make a hole. And so they're starting to drink. So the husky comes in and just pushes everybody aside. He just gets everybody's growling, showing his teeth. He shows his teeth and just, makes everybody back away. And so he starts drinking the water while everybody's all, just timidly just backing off of, they're all scared, and they're all just backing away, So here comes Buddy, and Buddy starts cracking on a different section. He cracks a bigger hole, so that this way him and the other dogs have an opportunity to drink. That's leadership. You know what I mean? So he wasn't just looking after for himself. He wasn't pushing everybody else around. He was looking to help the pack by being calm and firm. And he was trying to help everybody to get this, to get water. So of course, again, the husky's like, che fatto? He looks at the husky, you could tell he's like looking at him, and he's like, I don't like this fella. This guy's pissing me off. So in previous parts of the movie, the husky was able to pin Buddy down and to kind of like, push him aside, and to, even like I said, he's three times bigger. He was able to kind of like push him aside and intimidate him. Well, at this point, he's trying to do the same thing. He basically wants Buddy gone, right? So he goes after him, and a fight ensues between the dogs. So this fight ensues, and now Buddy at one point becomes more assertive, becomes more confident, right? But he does it in a very calm fashion, but very strong, where the other one was just trying to be a tough guy, trying to be Mr. Big Shot, Mr. Che se sentevo sapevo co, un pezzino 90 se sentiva, ma queer. He felt like a big shot. He didn't like, Buddy was not like that. Buddy was just calm, firm, in control, confident. He knew what the hell he was doing. So that's kind of like what the fight was happening. That's kind of like what was happening with this fight where, the husky was trying to like annihilate and get rid of Buddy altogether. At one point, what happened was, and this is typical, the reason why I like this part so much is because this was a really very dog-like behavior, right? Very, very dog-like. Okay. So there wasn't a fight where it was a bloodbath. This was a fight over dominance. Now, dominance is like a very big word when it comes to the dog world, where people look at it and say, you don't want to be dominant's a bad thing. Now, I partially agree that dominance is a bad thing, but I think I feel dominance, trying to explain this, dominance is not a bad thing in the animal world. It is a bad thing in the human world, because in the human world, that dominance, it's all about ego. Okay. You're being dominant from an ego perspective, and that is a problem. Okay. In the animal world, it has nothing to do with ego. It has to do with leadership, with instincts, with the survival of the pack. And it's got nothing to do with anything else. It's not about being the boss or wanting to be the boss. It's about what's best for everybody. Okay. And if the level of dominance that these two dogs displayed is exactly that. So where you have two humans, one that's trying to take over something, it becomes like a bloodbath. Well, in this particular example, this was not a brawl. Buddy was not trying to hurt the husky. What Buddy was trying to do was Buddy was trying to let the husky know, listen, I don't like your style of being in charge. I don't like your style of leadership. Therefore, I'm going to take over, because you're not looking after everybody. You're looking after yourself, and that's not acceptable. Okay. So how did he do that? Well, simple. They get into this fight, and there's a lot of, that kind of crazy stuff. And then at one point, Buddy grabs the husky by the scruff, by the top of the neck area, by that big patch of skin on the top of the neck, and just flips him over, grabs him by that scruff and just flips him over, puts him on his side. Okay. And then takes his paw and puts his paw like by the neck area, not pushing down, just kind of holding it. Right. And you see the husky, and you see the scene, which is really cool. You see the husky's head looking, first of all, he's looking directly at Buddy. And now you see his head, and he's basically trying to get up. But on top of him is Buddy, and he's looking right down on him with this strong, confident, assertive, in control look. And he's trying to get up the husky, and he's moving. Then as they lock eyes, they're looking at each other. And then he just stops, goes back down. And basically that was the end of it. So what does that all mean? It means that the husky surrendered to Buddy. He said, I give up. You win. You're in charge. That was it. Right. And then he moved. He got up. He walked away. And that was the end of it. You know what I mean? No blood, no guts all over the place, no hard feelings. No going on Facebook and Instagram and typing some crazy shit. No, none of that. Erano tutte belle tranquille. It was peaceful. It was harmony. It was beautiful, because that's what ends up happening. And that's why I always tell people is you never want to let your dogs be in control, because when you allow your dogs to be in control, they're going to fight it out for position. That's just the life. There has to be an authority figure. That's why if you are not the authority figure that is calm and firm, then they start to figure it out. You know what I mean? They start to figure these things out. When you are not in the right mindset, they don't trust and respect that. And that's just the bottom line. That's why Buddy is such an epitome of what we need to be when it comes to dog owners from a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. He shows that perfectly. So I highly recommend you watch the movie, The Call of the Wild, simply because you need to understand what I'm talking about. That's what's going to help you with your own dog, with your own pack. Okay. It's going to help you understand how you need to be, because that's really the key. Something so basic, so simple, so beautiful. And you think, oh my God, it was so violent. That's what dogs are all about, though. That's what dogs understand. Body language and energy is what they understand. So just because there's physical contact going on, it doesn't mean that physical contact is meant to harm. It's not violence. Violence done in anger or frustration, I'm sorry, touching, physical touch done with anger or frustration is violent. But physical touch in the animal world done with calmness and firmness is a form of communication. It's how they communicate. It's what they know. That's how animals communicate. It's common sense. They don't communicate with the treats. Buddy wasn't over there. They weren't negotiating with treats. Sit, stay, here's a cookie. Here, oh, what a good. They weren't doing that crap. You know what I'm saying? This was pure animal instinct. Now you could go back, and I'm sure there's good people. Well, that was because it's a movie, and that's because it's, it was an old wild. That's not how it is now. That is how it is. Dogs have not evolved from that perspective. That's how they are. They need structure. They need directions, boundaries, and limits, but only done in a common, firm fashion. So all the dog trainings, trick-or-treater idiots, and all the positive reinforcement and the science and all this shit, go watch The Dog of the Wild. That's how you learn how to do this stuff, all right? Don't get me started on that stuff. Anyway, but I love that because, again, it's primal. It's easy. It's dog language. It's right there. Dog language. It's beautiful. I'm telling you. Common, firm. It's beautiful communication. Anyway, okay. So that's the second movie. Highly recommend that movie, by the way. It's a really good movie. If you want to watch for entertainment purposes, knock yourself out. You'll definitely be entertained. It's cool. It's a really cool movie. Okay. Number 3. Hachi. It's H-A-C, how do I spell it? H-A-C-H-I, A Dog's Tale. So it's not a dog's tail like T-A-I-L. It's the dog's tail like it's in a story. Okay. So Hachi is an Akita. And I'm sorry. Yeah, I meant to, I think I talked about that. I'm not exactly sure what the dog in the Call of the Wild is. It looks like I said, like a Bernese Mountain Dog and a Saint Bernard kind of thing. But I'm sure it's some kind of dog. And, I should have looked it up. But anyway, actually, you know what? While we're talking, I'm going to try to look it up and see if I could find it. So, Hachi, the premise of Hachi. First of all, Hachi, like I said, is a dog. He's an Akita, and I didn't know any of this stuff. But as far as I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I do things in different. They're like in stages. Let me write this in. What kind of dog is in? Okay. Saint Bernard Scotch Shepherd mix. There you go. Perfect. I was close. Bedamot. I'm so freaking good at this. Bedamotris Antisima. Yeah, you'll see he's definitely a mixed breed. He's a Saint Bernard Scotch Shepherd mix. That's what he is. I'm pretty proud of myself. I'm telling you, he looked Saint Bernardish. He looked very much like a Saint Bernard. But anyway, so there. I'm glad we looked that up. Pretty. Am I good? So good beard. Not only am I a good looking face, but I got great hair, and I know. And okay, let me calm down. Stop. Relax, guy. Listen, this is what we do on Barking for Balance. We have fun. We have lots of fun here. Anyway, so Hachi, A Dog's Tale. So Hachi, like I said, is an Akita. The actual movie, this is a true story. Hachi Dog's Tale is actually a true story. Now, the actual story, though, is based in Japan. Okay, so Hachi was the dog of a Japanese guy, and I'll tell you what the movie is about, and then I'll tell you what the actual facts are. It's basically very, very, at least it seems to be very accurate. It's just not based in Japan; it's based in America, and Richard Gere plays the main character. So Richard Gere is a music professor, and one day he's coming home from work. He's at the train station. He takes the train to get to work. I don't remember where exactly it's located, but he takes the train to go to work. And on his way back from the train, an Akita puppy was being shipped from Japan to somebody. So somehow this dog breaks out of this crate and gets lost inside the train station. So he finds Richard Gere. And, Richard Gere bonds with him. He loves him, blah, 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 blah. To make a long story short, he ends up keeping him. The Akita grows up. Now, the pattern was that every time that Richard Gere would leave, the Akita would get a little rambunctious there, would get a little weird. So he would basically break out and end up either following Richard Gere to the train station or end up at one point waiting for Richard Gere at the train station. So after a while of all this back and forth, the Dakai, da, Dakai, da, what they ended up doing was they decided to bring the Akita with them, bring Hachi with them. He would walk with them off leash next to him. He would roam around, whatever. And everybody around him knew him. He would stop at the butcher store and he would get meat. He would stop at the coffee shop and he would get like a bagel, and everybody would give him food. Everybody knew him in that area. So he would walk him to the train station, and then he would wait at the train station for Richard Gere to come back, and then he would jump on him, hi, Hachi, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And then they would walk their asses home, and that was basically how it worked. So one day, Richard Gere was at work, and there's Hachi at the train station waiting for him outside, and like normal. But Richard Gere had a heart attack and died. So there's Hachi waiting for him. Now, their bond was very close. Now, this movie, I'm not going to lie, this movie is it's really good, but it's a bit of a tearjerker. And it's not just a tearjerker from the human side, but especially from the dog side too. Now, I'm looking at it obviously from an entertainment perspective. I'm looking at it from a human perspective, and also from a humanization perspective, human and humanization perspective. But I'm also looking at it from a professional perspective. Now, I obviously don't know the facts. I didn't know about the whole Japan thing until the end, when they showed the credits right at the end. So I had my own personal opinion about certain things from a professional standpoint, and I'll get to that in a second. But the premise of it is, again, Richard Gere dies. Now Hachi is just all screwed up. So he ends up moving in with his daughter, who's married, and they have a kid, but he's not happy. So the daughter decides to let him go, right? He wants to run away. He runs away all the time. They bring him back. He runs away again. So finally they say, listen, if you got to go, you got to go. So basically they let him go. And at some point, Hachi becomes kind of like a stray. Okay. He's living underneath the train. He's eating whatever it is that they're giving him. And the after Richard Gere passes away, he pretty much just hangs around the train station. So his schedule, so to speak, never changed. You know what I mean? He would go at the train station, wait in his spot every single day in the summertime, because you see like the parts when it's snowing, you see the parts when it's summer, you see like the weather changing, the years go by, and every single day this is what he does. He goes to the train station, waits, then he's done. He goes back to like his little area where he hangs out, and that's the basic life of it. So the real story behind it is, again, it's based in Japan. The owner passes away. This was the routine. He would follow him, wait for him at the train station. But then, the owner passed away, and the dog would still go. It was an Akita as well, obviously. He would go to the train station, and he would wait for him every single day until he passed away. That's basically what ended up happening. The minute facts, I don't know, to make it more of a movie style. I don't exactly know if this is all real. But again, from the movie perspective, I'm going to get to that first, and then I'm going to get into like the humanization factor, and then I'm going to get into like the professional aspect of it. So yeah, so the movie is that kind of stuff where, again, he just goes, he waits, and then eventually, he moves on to the afterlife, crosses the rainbow bridge. And you see the evolution of him and how he gets older and he starts to move slower, and you could tell the evolution of it. And if you're wondering like who's taking care of this dog, again, based on the movie, it's the people at the train station that are taking care of the dog. Medical, food, water, it's them that are taking care of Hachi. This is based on the movie, so I'm assuming it was the same thing in Japan. And they actually have a statue of this dog in Japan in honor of Hachi, because he became so famous. I guess some reporters saw it, so they were like writing like all sorts of articles about it, and he became famous. There was like, people sending money, like one guy, I think he worked at the train station. He became like an executor for Hachi to take care of like food expenses and medical expenses and whatnot. They didn't show any of those details, but they talk about that kind of stuff, that's happening, that people are sending money and whatever. So he basically became famous through this reporter who wrote an article, and they built a statue in his honor after he passed away. Right. So it's really cool. So from a movie perspective, it's cool. Storyline is great. It's a true story. So this is not this is a real thing. So the humanization factor. Yeah. I mean, from a human perspective, you feel bad for this dog. The dog is like, in such a state of despair. He's so stuck in a rut. He's going through the same thing every single day, even though the owner's not coming. Right. So yeah, from a human standpoint, from a humanization standpoint, you kind of feel that those emotions that this dog is going through, his daddy, his owner, his master, whatever you want to call him. And he treated him well. Like, Richard Gere played with them. He hung out with them all. He treated him great. In real life, I'm assuming it's got to be similar, because the dog's not going to wait outside for a guy who treats him like shit, So, it just shows like that bond, that respect. I mean, when I watch that movie, I'm not going to lie, it's a bit of a tearjerker. So, have a box of tissues. I sue at the Loike. If you're wearing makeup, you're prepared to have it smeared. I was hugged by guys, and we cuddled, and, I hugged them more and cuddled with them and talked to them a little bit more than normal, because again, there's like that human factor to it that really just kicks in, that humanization factor where you start to relate to him. You start to see yourself in Hachi, dealing with how that whole thing is going, and how you would be if something like that, like that's what happened with me. Like I was relating to that, like what would I do in those circumstances, and you see like that bond of human and dog when it's done right, when you see that relationship, when you see how dogs are, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Get a little tear jerky right here. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. È troppo bello, bellissimo. So that's the humanization factor of it. The professional factor of it, and again, I didn't know any of this, so I was formulating my own opinions, and I was cursing at the TV. I'm like, spezzi merda, because I didn't know that this was, based on its fact that it's a true story. I didn't know that this was coming from Japan, so I'm sure that they changed some stuff around, I'm assuming. But the parts that I was annoyed about from a professional standpoint, here's a dog who clearly has some issues, some anxiety, and as much as, yeah, it's great, he's waiting for his owner. The fact that he was allowed to do that, that's not cool, because he was basically suffering. This is my opinion on the matter. He was basically suffering for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? He was living with this sadness, with this anxiety, with this fear. He wasn't a happy dog. And you could tell in the movie that that's what's happening. So from a professional standpoint, they should have helped this dog, overcome those, because as much as, yes, dogs do mourn. I truly, I know that for a fact. Dogs do mourn. They mourn differently than humans, but they do mourn. They do bond with humans and or other, animals. So they do feel that absence. They do feel certain emotions such as such. But just like with humans, we need to move past those points. We need to not get stuck. You understand? We have to move on. We have to keep them in our hearts, but we have to move forward. And unfortunately, that's a lot of times what people do with dogs that have been like traumatized, through, let's say, legitimate, like, issues or abuse issues or whatever. Even if it's not abuse issues, when they're just stuck in like this fear, this anxiety, we let them wallow in that misery. And we, even as humans, we have to help them move forward. We have to help them, move past that. We have to help them grow, because otherwise it's a miserable life. You know what I mean? And so when I'm watching this dog and I'm seeing how he is, and, he's mopey and he's just waiting for his, okay, I get it. And that's great. From a humanization standpoint, from a human standpoint, okay, I get it. But now let's help this dog live a happy life. And because that wasn't done, that kind of bothers me. Again, if I'm looking at it from the professional perspective, that kind of bothered me. Like, why did we not help this dog? Where was I? Why did nobody call the Packman? Get fucked. In Japan. I'll learn how to speak Japanese. I'll help that dog, But, seeing a dog just suffer, being stuck in this rut, it's sad. It was sad. And I think that's part of like the tear jerker thing for me, was that nobody helped this dog move on and just live the rest of his life happy. Because believe it or not, he would have, if he would have been put in the right position. You know what I mean? If he would have been able to take that mind and just move on from there, that's what dogs do. Believe it or not, that's what dogs do. People don't want to believe that, but it's true. If you allow them to get stuck in something, they're going to get stuck. Okay. So if somebody passes away, or just like other dogs that like get surrendered, or if owners pass away, they go into a different home, they flourish there because they move on, like even with us, we go get out of a relationship, whatever the reason, and we move on and we flourish. And that's just, even if it's under bad circumstances, we still move on. So that was the professional side. But anyway, as a movie as a whole, it was cool. It was a little, it was a little slow, very emotional movie. It's not the kind of movie you want to watch where you want to be entertained. This is the movie that you want to watch if you want to like just cry. You know what I'm saying? This is the movie for you. that kind of thing. But it's still definitely, worthwhile. So that's just my three movies that I wanted to talk about. Again, I'm going to talk about the movie aspect. We're going to talk about, the professional aspect. Highly recommend all three, and we'd love to hear your thoughts if you have seen any of these movies, or if you're going to see these movies. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think about it, your opinions on what you think about them. Again, from a movie perspective, and from a professional, from a dog perspective, all that kind of good stuff. So hit me up with some comments and some questions, and we could talk about that further. But yeah, so that's the three movies, the first segment of three dog movies that we're going to talk about in this particular podcast episode. So again, any questions, you guys know where to find me. Guys, listen, it's about training people, not training dogs. That's the mission here. Okay. And if you need help, if you're anywhere in the world, if you're all over the place, we have our virtual program that allows us to help and to guide you and to give you the support, the knowledge, and the tools needed to get the job done. It's 100% effective. You don't have to be sitting in front of somebody to give you those tools. When a person like myself that understands dogs, that knows dogs, they could do it. They don't have to be seeing a dog behave a certain way to know what the problem is, how it's created, and how to fix it. And I can teach you what it is that you need to do to earn that trust and respect. This way, your dog doesn't do what I want him to do. Your dog is going to respond to you and not just to me, because I already know what I need to do and how I need to be. You need to do the same thing and be the same way in order to earn that dog's trust and respect. And our virtual program, our virtual platform does that. Okay. So if you need help, if you have problems with your dog, with yourself, I'm here to help, guys. I'm the Packman. That's what I do. I create packs. Okay. That's what I'm here to do. If you want to talk about career change, if you want to talk about inspirational stuff, if you want to talk about God, whatever you want to talk about, hit me up. We could talk about it. We'll bring you as a guest on the Barking for Balance platform, and we could have some fun. Okay. It's about training people, not training dogs. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's about. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, this unique episode of Barking for Balance. We're going to have more of these. And like I said, if you have any questions, you have any issues, let me know. It's about training people, not training dogs. I am Pat the Packman. Catch you guys next time.